both just as crazy. And so that the problem with that with I see a problem with
What? Name one.
with Putin saying I see a problem. I see a problem. It's funny. It's World War III is funny.
Yeah.
And it's just inherently nuclear war. Hilarious. It's funny.
I close my eyes and I fall asleep. I miss my home, I miss my family. Find exile now beneath these burning clouds. The sunset calls, reveals celebrity. Bombs are still falling on us, baby. Tell me you love me again.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maverick Matthews, and you are watching Pepper for Your Steak Dispatches. Back in the podcast studio in Kranzakatoa down here in Jensen Beach, Florida. I took a little sojourn to go snowboarding. I was invited up. A friend had a spot at Grand Targhee and said, come check it out. Never been there. And it, terrible resort, don't go there. Actually, it was amazing, and I was blown away. But during my travels, I felt super conflicted because of what's going on the world stage. All I could think about was I'm flying across the country to go slide around a mountain like a dolphin. And there's people on boats and big aircraft shipping out to go to war. This doesn't escape me. Now, that opening clip, World War III is funny. It's not funny, right? Everybody knows this. But the madness level has been ratcheted up so high that I would make the argument that if you are not at least trying to find the comedy in the world, just as a habit, you're going to go crazy. And you can see it. There are labels now. They may as well have little windows above people as they walk around. If you see a person with a mask, you go, oh, this person's visibly broken. They didn't come back from the last big psyop. I don't know what my role is in this. I'm not pretending to be some messiah, and this most certainly is not the best place to get your news. But I do have an awesome show for you today because there were some beautiful things that were dripped into my experience, the coffee pot of my experience. The universe dripped me some pearls. So I can't wait to share them with you today. Foxy, don't abandon me. I know, that's what I do. I'm tangential. Thank you, Aaron. Oh yeah, World War III is funny. You know, I opened with that quote from the Jimmy Dore show, World War III is funny. It's not funny. But the antidote, the salve for the condition of pain and suffering and sadness is laughing, is humor, is finding the absurdity in things. Everything has an opposite, and Comedy is the opposite of suffering. That's why it's so important. That's why they try to control it so much. You can't tell jokes this way. That's always wrong. Comedy will always be dangerous because it's the only place that you can't pollute it and people won't notice. You can take crime investigation shows and make one super realistic, but that has never existed because it's boring. So they can pollute it and make it whatever you want. And now you think that's what crime is, like one of these bullshit TV shows. You can't do that with comedy. If you take comedy and pollute it, it's not funny. Comedy will always be dangerous because you can't pollute it. You can't put bad ingredients in the soup and have no one notice. It becomes immediately apparent. You can do that with every other genre in acting or entertainment. Comedy is the only one that you can't pollute. You can pollute the news quite easily, as we know. Okay. So let's do the show music. Please visit maverickmatthews.com. Most importantly for today, as far as being a viewer, and by the way, don't believe these view counts. You know, if you think I've only had 10 views, you're out of your mind. I know for a fact I've been tombstone algorithmed, and I've done experiments. I'm not going to get into that. What I do need you to do is please leave a comment of any kind. Be nice. It's not productive. This isn't going to get better if you leave a comment that says, you suck. But it will get better. Yeah? Okay. Good? All right. So let's do the show music, and we'll get into this. I'm excited. This is going to be fun. Maverick Matthews, pepper for your steak.
Saying that such behavior on the part of the power of his genius supplied the deficiencies of the imperfect communications of the Hierophants, and he himself became a master and a revealer.
We thought we had something different here, you see. We live in both a very fragile and precious experiment in democracy, and we live in an empire that is experiencing profound decline.
Reptilian agenda. Okay, let's talk about the reptilians. So you're saying the reptilians are luring humans to like Hawaii to vacation spots?
The news is there to scare white people. I've said this for years.
To live this life, you can't live the life everyone else lives. You're not going to be partying on the weekends. You're going to be performing on the weekends. You're not going to be watching the big game on a Thursday night because you'll be in a club. You have to have that mindset that you don't belong. You don't go to the rhythm of the rest of the world.
Pepper for your steak.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Smell that? That's the smell of World War III. I know, I'm as equally as excited about it as you are. I know what a day to get to the final boss. We're on our way to the final boss, ladies and gentlemen. So, I have a few things for you to consider that I think you'll find quite entertaining. The first, and not least of which, is Donald Trump's daily schedule, his daily routine. You know, this came to me from the gods. I heard it on the Jimmy Dore show. It was written by another reporter. You'll notice that it does mention that the item is slightly compressed. But the point remains, you can read the headlines. Everyone's going to get a sense of exactly what I'm talking about the minute he starts reading this. It's been pretty erratic, and certainly not the campaign promises. But this is not a political show. I just happened to notice the similarity between Donald Trump's decision-making schedule and Hunter Thompson's daily routine. So I'm going to play you Donald's, and then we'll listen to Hunter's. Ready? Here's Donald's.
This is a Friday's gaggle, barely exaggerated. At 12:03 p.m., President Trump told reporters he wanted a ceasefire with Iran. At 12:05, he declared victory. At 12:07, he announced he was sending Marines. At 12:08, he said no boots on the ground. At 12:11, he said he did not want a ceasefire. At 12:16, he declared victory again. At 12:17, he asked for a ceasefire. At 12:23, he told NATO they were cowards. At 12:29, he said Iran was begging for a ceasefire. At 12:31, he said everything was perfect. At 12:36, he said $500 oil was a good thing. At 12:37, he demanded Iran open Hormuz. At 12:39, he said Hormuz was never closed. At 12:41, he said the U.S. was not at war with Iran. At 12:42, he declared victory in Iran.
Doesn't that just make the heart swell with trust and love? I was mortified when I heard this. I was absolutely mortified, but ladies and gentlemen, the game is changing. The veil is lifted. It is time. Does that mean you run around like a rat on a sinking shoebox, panicking? No. So tune into InfoWars to find out what the crazies are up to figure out how close it's coming to you. But also, remember that we have to maintain a kind of beauty in our lives. And on that note, listen to Hunter Thompson's daily routine. Then we'll think about how they are similar. This was also reported by someone interviewing Hunter, so I'm sure it was exaggerated. I'm sure Hunter was performing, but let's listen to this.
All right, here's his daily routine. 3 p.m., rise. 3:05, Chivas Regal with morning papers. Smokes Dunhills. 3:45, cocaine. 3:50, another glass of Chivas, another Dunhill. 4:05 p.m., by the way, first cup of coffee and a Dunhill. 4:15, cocaine. 4:16, orange juice and another Dunhill. 4:30, cocaine. 4:54, cocaine. 5:05, cocaine. 5:11, coffee, Dunhills. 5:30, get more ice in the Chivas. Cocaine at 5:45, 6 o'clock. Smoking grass, take the edge off the day. 7 p.m.
The day, 3 hours into it.
3 hours in, lit. 7:05, Woody Creek Tavern for lunch. Heineken, 2 margaritas, coleslaw, a taco salad, double order of fried onion rings, carrot cake, ice cream, a bean fritter, Dunhills, another Heineken, cocaine. And for the rest of the ride home, a snow cone, a glass of shredded ice, which is poured over 4 jiggers of Chivas. Okay, so the snow cone is Chivas. Okay, 9 p.m., start snorting cocaine seriously, it says. 10 p.m., drops acid. 11 p.m., chartreuse, I don't know what that is, cocaine and grass. 11:30, cocaine, etc., etc. 12, midnight, Hunter S. Thompson is ready to write.
Wow.
That's when he sits down to write. 12:05 to 6 a.m., he writes. Chartreuse, cocaine, grass, Chivas, coffee, Heineken, clove cigarettes, grapefruit, Dunhills, orange juice, gin, continuous pornographic movies. 6 a.m., in the hot tub with champagne, Dove bars, fettuccine Alfredo. 8 a.m., Halcyon, which is a sleeping pill. 8:20, sleep.
Now, I would never advocate the use of drugs and alcohol to anyone, ever. But they've always worked for me. That's a Hunter Thompson quote. Now, the difference in these two examinations, and the similarities are pretty obvious. You have an exploration to the bounds of reality. The difference is one of these people is doing it intentionally, and the other one, I believe, is a figurehead on a sinking ship. This is pretty wild, and that's as far as I'll go for this, but I thought you'd appreciate that. share this clip. All right, this is a fast-moving episode. I don't feel as moved to go on these beautiful diatribes when I'm trapped in the city like a rat, like this. And so Kranzakatoa is really going to be about kind of examining clips, getting little morsels of information, and then hopefully more electronic music so I can send you off into the wilds to train with the new running club, which we'll talk about later. This next clip is just, it's kind of just an advertisement for what's coming. Pretty excited. Pretty excited about UFC on the front White House lawn. That's going to be cool. I bet you it'd be pretty interesting to learn that the gigantic, many millions of dollars ballroom that they're building at the White House will be used for UFC events at some point. Check this out.
Dana, we're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little, we're not, Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. Going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events, some professional events, some amateur events. But the UFC fight's going to be a big deal too. And
it's certainly going to be a good time, isn't it? It's going to be really interesting to watch the UFC at the White House. Now, if you are a student of history like I am, you know that during times of massive upheaval, when they really want to give it to the public hard, when the state really wants to go after something hard and send millions of people potentially to their death, they really have to ramp up the bread and circus. And so you're going to see a lot of this. Remember, they were giving away free donuts and burgers if you got the Jabberino. So that was the test for this, okay? They're really going to clamp down, but they're also going to give you some great TV. We are this close from Running Man, where it's some evil predator and everybody will hate him because they'll make you think. Don't forget, in the original Running Man, they make you think that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a police officer and he just blows away like 30 people in a helicopter. That's not what happened. But they make you think that. So people are cheering for this guy's death and they show it on TV. We already have this on Instagram, YouTube, all over the place. So the only difference is going to be sanctioned by the state. And that's UFC is going to be used to soften that up. Wait a decade. We're going to have a Hunger Games Running Man fusion. That's my prediction. I think it'll take about 10 years. Just wait. And if you watch the movies, the predictive programming, Hunger Games takes place after the Great Wars, doesn't it? Where the crazy people live in the cities. And those of us who are going to be hunting deer with basic weaponry and snares usually because they're nice and quiet. Look, that's where we're going to be. Make your choice. Choose wisely. Now's the time to start thinking about stuff like this, folks. You don't have to abandon everything now, but there will come a time very soon. Big thundercloud come. You know, people could live their whole life without seeing a lifelong torrential flood of where they live. And then one day it just shows up. And you wouldn't even know that was a possibility because things happen geologically. Well, politics happens geologically too. America's had it really good. Homework for this week. Go watch Red Dawn, the original, not the new one. Let us say a prayer for those we have lost, like Chuck Norris and Patrick Swayze. Okay, finally, this is a very, governmente, to govern the mind kind of episode. And again, at the White House, they're really pushing it all at us right now at once. Remember, there's a big battle between the forces who want to create the temple in Israel and the forces who want to create the same kind of temple digitally with AI, the Palantirs of the world. So I don't recommend choosing either side, but pay attention to what they're both doing, because whether you like it or not, you are caught in the middle of this battle of the elites. It's pretty epic. It will make a good story as long as we survive it. And again, my heart goes out to all the people who are just not in a position to be able to avoid what is coming down the pipe or has already happened. But I wanted to look at this. They made a pretty clear statement about what their intentions are for the future. We're not going to actually have AI controlling us. There's not going to be an AI robot as a president. You're going to think that it's an AI robot, but this is just the Wizard of Oz in modern times. Do you really think that the people who have power would give it up to a computer? The Bezoses is, well, that's a bad example because he's just a front man. The names I can't name, the Council of 300, all the people at the top, the 13 families, the bloodlines. You think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, let a computer figure it out for us? No, it'll just be another figurehead. But let's listen to what this new figurehead has to say.
Gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump.
Thank you, First Lady Melania Trump.
All right. It is time for the Esoteric Easter Egg portion of the show. Thank you for being here. You made it. This week on Pepper for Your Steak, the esoteric concept I'm going to give you a little tiny morsel, a little Easter egg of. Most people who are informed know about the CIA mind control program known as MK Ultra, which, if you believe the mainstream narrative, ended in the 1970s. Of course it did not, but that's neither here nor there. The point I would like to make is probably something you haven't heard, and I wish I could give credit to the source where I heard this, but I can't remember. Do you know what MK stands for? MK. If it's a mind control program, I just don't understand. Why would it be a K? Why wouldn't it be MC Ultra? It's a K because you spell control with a K in German. That's right. It goes beyond Operation Paperclip, ladies and gentlemen. Go pay attention to who funded all the conflicts. It's always the same people, and they wear a lot of masks. During a certain period, science was governed by Germans. And those Germans were brought over here, largely after the Second World War, but they went to other places too. And that's why MK Ultra used a lot of foundational research from a lot of bad Nazi scientists. And it's going on to this very day. What do you think they do in all these hospitals with their experimental medication? I watched them screw a metal cage to my mother's head so they could do some kind of pinpoint accuracy. Oh my gosh, this is the best laser tumor removal. It did fucking dick. And I did the research. It's largely absolutely worthless, but very expensive and evil procedure. Anytime they could put your head in a cage, they love that shit. Anyway, to digress, most people don't take the time to look at the roots of things. Go look at the roots of the pharmaceutical company Bayer. Go find out how they were doing, experiments on people in Europe during the concentration camp days under the name IG Farben. Understand that these are the same people who rolled out all this same stuff. Nothing has changed. Nothing will change. You have to opt out. Stay away. I'm not talking about hiding. You have to learn to do what the elites do with their symbols and all their evil shit. You have to learn how to hide in plain sight. There's rules. I'm going to have an episode about this, about how to hide in plain sight. I'll give you a couple teasers, a couple little morsels. Here's one that I learned, and Joey Diaz talked a lot about this. Don't go out after dark. Like, vampires come out after dark. Metaphorically, that's absolutely true. It's less safe. This is our number one evil enemy. That's why the Abrahamic religions turned the sun that rises over the sky, which belongs to the creator of the universe, right? God, if you will. That's his sun. It belongs to him. It's God's sun, the light of the day, of the universe, or whatever the quote is. That's the biggest hack. Create your operating hours when it is the least likely to cause you problems. If you want to take this life seriously, if you want to have the ability to manipulate reality and manifest your future and change the stuff that isn't good right now, or at least get away from it to where it's safe, the place to do that is in the woods. And the way to do it, did I say that backwards? There's a huge buildup. Don't look to people like me for answers, folks. All these talking heads, they have to be viewed as entertainment and slightly informative. You will take little morsels away from here. That's all I hope. I hope the rest is entertaining. I hope the rest is entertain for you. But it's not a propaganda. That's a good. Waiting for the motorcycle. All right. This was a quick one. It was concise. It was fast. I don't have any electronic music for you this week, but I will next week. And as much as happening around you, remember that there are people who are suffering and they need your attention. The last thing I would like to leave you with is the bad guys are out there. Sometimes I'll ask my wife, where was the pedophile today? And she'll go, what do you mean? I go, which one was he? Because there was one out there. We have to assume that the bad guys are right next to you. Don't ever forget, you can't let your guard down. As Sam Tripoli loves to say, the predators are never sleeping. But at the same time, you have to balance that with the ability to smoke a J, sit down next to the ocean, feel safe and calm, or in your home, in your castle, no matter where it is, even if it's tiny. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I started living in a wooden camper that I built out of the scrap from sets. And I lived in this for 6 months on the street with my dog, with no electricity, a tiny little Coleman-type stove, and a lantern. And I was working on building up my network. There is always hope. I made that of nothing. The base, the trailer with the wheels, to get that, I think I paid $300 for that. And then I took home all the scrap wood from set. If I could do that, I remember days when I had $1 in my bank account and I would spend it on a McDonald's hamburger. Even though it was the worst, I knew it was bad nutrition. When I was on set and they fed us, I would load up. I was the kid that they would give the sandwiches to at the end of the day. You have to spend time getting your hands dirty at the dish tank instead of being out drinking with your friends. You have to focus on making sure that the paper is coming in instead of going out. And you have to find ideas or places to get ideas like this to keep you motivated so you can stay enriched and bring value to this human experience instead of just wandering around like so many of these people out here that I see wandering around like zombies, like they have no purpose. Nothing's invigorating them anymore. Nothing's stimulating them. Nothing's making them feel loved. Believe me. And I promise you, because I've been in the dregs of depression where I knew no one in the world, not a dollar to my name. I still had my doggy though. Sorry, my nose is driving me nuts. I don't know what's going on. I wish it was the reason that they're going to assume, but it isn't. There is a way forward. And the most important component about finding that way is to separate from the noise, find your center, and learn the Bruce Lee technique of being like water. To just conform to whatever universe is around you, and let things be, and react quickly and violently when you need to. That's the nature of this reality. Easter's coming up. I don't want to call it Beltane. I want to come up with a better spring festival name, so I'll have that next week. Because that's what it is. It's a celebration of renewal. Coming out of the winter. We're here together. We're going to make it. As usual, we will end this episode with the brilliance of the good doctor, Hunter Thompson. And on that note, I would like to dedicate this episode to all the people who have tried to make it easier for those being trafficked in our country, those who have gone before from entertainment. Talking about the Chester Benningfields of the world. Benningfield? I was never a huge fan, but I know what happened to him. You know, the Chris Cornells, the Anthony Bourdains, Hunter Thompsons. These people were martyrs because they tried to stand up for what they believed in, and they did a good job for a long time, but in the end, the bad guys got him. The bad guy's going to get a lot of us, unfortunately. I am to understand that they are coming after podcasts next. So enjoy this while it lasts. I know that was a lot. Thank you for being here. If you made it all the way through, here's some beautiful Hunter Thompson for you. My name is Maverick Matthews, and this was a Pepper Free Steak Dispatch.
Full-time scrambling. November 4th, 1985. The TV business is uglier than most things. It is normally perceived as some kind of cruel and shallow money trench through the heart of the journalism industry. A long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs for no good reason. Which is more or less true. For the most part, they are dirty little animals with huge brains and no pulse. Every once in a while, they will toss up a token human like Ed Bradley or Edwin Newman or Hughes Rudd. And there are others, no doubt, like Studs Terkel in Chicago and the twisted Reverend Gene Scott, who works like a sleepless ferret in the maniac bowels of Southern California. But these are only the exceptions that prove the hideous rule. Mainly, we are dealing with a profoundly degenerate world, a living web of foulness, greed, and treachery, which is also the biggest real business around and impossible to ignore. You can't get away from TV. It is everywhere. The hog is in the tunnel.